All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are hearing this, you have once again tuned to the Consequence of Habit podcast, and this is your host, JT. Hey, as many of you know, today is Giving Tuesday. Today's a day worldwide where people give to charitable organizations, nonprofits, with missions that they believe in. They fall in line with their values, and they open up their wallets or their pocketbooks, and they help support them. And if you've gotten anything from this podcast or any of the events that we've already held, or events that we're going to be holding, which more to come when you hear about this week's guest, then we ask you to please go on to consequenceofhabit.org, find out more about us. Find out if our mission to bring awareness to the impact that habits have on our mental health, our success in the environment, falls in line with your values. And if so, please donate. None of this happens without donations. There isn't a board member on here that collects any money from this. This is all volunteer work, but we believe in this idea of doing something bigger than us, building connection through purpose, challenge, and empathy. And I've been super fortunate to surround myself with a board of directors that is, they're unbelievable. We have experts in the field of mental health, behavioral science, meditation, mindfulness, addiction, sustainability. So please check us out. And like I said, if our mission falls in line with your values, then please do us a favor and send a little cheddar, man. Help support what we're doing and all the things to come. And speaking of events, we are currently planning one for this April that's going to take place either at or near Dover Air Force Base. It's going to be a mindfulness, meditation, and movement workshop run by retired Navy SEAL John McCaskill, as well as this week's guest, Dr. Theresa Larson. Dr. Larson's a lot of things. She's a mother, she's a Marine officer veteran, and she's an entrepreneur. And if you looked at her life right now, you'd say, man, this woman must have always had it all together. And when I have conversations with people that seem to be just kicking life in the ass, yet they're willing to talk about the times that, well, man, sometimes they're not pretty. They're willing to talk about the hard things with the hopes of helping other people who could be going through the same thing. Those are the people I love having conversations with. And that's exactly what happened on this one. Dr. Larson struggled with an eating disorder while she was serving as a Marine officer. She spent all of her time taking care of the Marines under her, all while personally struggling with some of her own demons, which eventually led her to a crossroads in her life where she had to make a really difficult choice. But I'll let her take it from there. So without further ado, please welcome to the podcast, Dr. Theresa Larson. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Consequence of Habit podcast. Today, I am honored to have on Dr. Theresa Larson. Theresa, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, JT. I'm excited to be here with my, other half here, Skelly. Doesn't say much.
Yeah.
We'll just be observing.
Well, I think I'm going to have you turn around just so everyone knows there's a skeleton behind her here.
There is.
And we're going to point out all the jacked up areas on my body that hopefully you'll be able to figure out what's going on. So full transparency, this is not the first time we tried doing this. I think the first time I saw a notification that you had jumped on the Zoom call. Wow, long story short, this is the third time. Last time I completely dropped the ball and just didn't show up for it. So the fact that you are gracious enough to agree to come back means a lot. And I do appreciate that very much.
Well, I have to say, JT, so one, like I told you before this, when you're doing big things, sometimes you do drop the ball, but the fact that you owned it and you followed up, right? That says a lot about you. So, hey,
all right.
a lot of people don't do that.
I'll take it. Thank you. All right. So there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about today. You're kind of a unicorn because what you're doing with the vets, We're going to get into some things around coping mechanisms and habits and addiction. And then we're going to get into something that kind of really interests me about your story. And maybe we'll start off with that. From the outside looking in, it seems like you had this passion around fitness and mindfulness and physical therapy, but your idea of it wasn't really fitting the mold of what was out there already. And you've kind of created this new thing and made it your own, where instead of saying, hey, I'm going to jump on and just do what everybody else is doing, it's like you just wipe the slate clean. So, hey, let's do it the way I want to do it. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh yeah, definitely correct. I was actually just speaking to my grad school a little bit before this about that. Like, I can't do the norm. Like, now that I know what's out there in the PT world and health and wellness world, like I see where the missing pieces are. Mm-hmm. And as someone who is also up to doing big things, like I can't just let those slide.
Yeah.
Like I want to do something about it. And that's like living, right? Like going after your passion, living it each day, as hard as it is, like that's living.
Yeah. Yeah. So just so everyone knows what the hell we're talking about, you have started a company called Movement RX.
Yeah.
So a lot of people listening to this have probably gone through some type of physical therapy, where it was that thing where you went in, they brought you in, you might be in a room with a bunch of other people. They do a little stretching with you. They put some heat, some stint, and then you're kind of sent on your way. Right. And it's so a guy, I've had 2 back surgeries, very familiar with this. That's not what you were trying to do. So let's explain what Movement RX is and really how you found yourself needing to do something different than what the mold was.
Yeah. So I graduated from PT school for everyone. So I'm 40. I graduated when I was 32. Like I didn't just go right into PT school right out of college. Right? I played. So I joined the Marine Corps. I served as a Marine officer, and then I got out of the service and played a year of professional softball. So I got a chance to play professionally as a pitcher. And then from there it was like, okay, I want to do something in medicine, maybe something in fitness, like what would fit that? So those experiences, kind of being a Marine, being an athlete, like helped expose me to like, okay, it looks like the medicine world, the medical world, I would like that. But I also want to be able to prescribe movement and help people with their physical injuries, not just prescribing medication. So that's what led me to PT. And so I went back to school and got my doctorate, which took me 5 years because I had to do all the prereqs for school. And then actually get my doctorate. So at 32, I got my doctorate, and like literally 6 months into working in a traditional PT practice, which was sports performance, I was like, peace out.
Yeah,
I am not doing this. Like I felt like I was developing ADHD because they gave me literally every hour you had to treat 3 patients at the same time and kind of like run back and forth between the patients. And that wasn't unlike most clinics because that's how you increase volume and they get paid. And I was like, this sucks. Right. I don't know if we can swear on this podcast.
You have at it.
This fucking sucks. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I literally gave them my 3-week notice and went and got married. My husband and I went and got married, went on a honeymoon. And then when I got back, I literally started just setting up tables in CrossFit gyms. Like I loved CrossFit. That seemed to be people that, fellow veterans, law enforcement, people that I, tended to gravitate towards that. Mm-hmm. And so I started to work out and then just meet some gym owners and set up my table there and treat athletes and help them stay in CrossFit, like help them do it better, help them stay healthier to do it versus tell them, oh, you shouldn't do that. Like that's very typical in the health and wellness industry too. Like, oh, why are you squatting like that? Like, why are you lifting weights like that? Like why are we living? Like, of course we should be doing these things. Like, let's just teach people how to do them well. And so so that's how I created Movement RX, was basically it initially started with me literally carrying around a table in San Diego, treating athletes in these different performance centers. And we still actually have a PT. So like 8 years later, we still have a PT practice in San Diego. But I also, with running my PT practice, I got to, teach for CrossFit. So I like literally traveled across the world teaching the movement and mobility course for CrossFit that was initially created by Kelly Starrett. And, but I found that, people liked what I taught. I kind of developed my own way of teaching it and wanted like online programming. And so like 4 years ago, I was like, okay, well, I wanted to develop this online platform, which was very unique, right? Like it's like instead of doing one-on-one PT care, now I'm like trying to create these digital programs that people can create, access on demand. And so I did that. And of course, when you create something, doesn't mean just people are going to run towards it. Like had to market it.
Yeah,
but
I know.
I still felt like something was missing. Like, okay, here I am giving people these low back fix, knee fix, shoulder fix programs, advice, but like I still wasn't tapping into the emotional health piece, which is very much a part of a physical injury. And at that same time I created these digital programs, I was dealing with my own anxiety, depression. I'd created this business I wanted, yet I was still dealing with my own stuff that was coming up. And so I reached out to a mindfulness meditation coach who happened to be a biofeedback therapist. And I started going on my own journey down the mindfulness meditation space, not applying it to my practice yet. But over time, I realized this is what's missing with the stuff I teach. Yeah, I'm helping you improve your snatch, but you can't freaking slow down. Or like I'm helping you, improve your shoulder injury or your hip, but you've got stuff going on neck up too, and you're not addressing it.
Sure.
And so that's when, I started putting out like the stuff that's the mindfulness work that I had been going through. And that's when John and I connected. John McCaskill, who's, for those of you that don't know him, he's a retired Navy SEAL commander, big in the mindfulness meditation space. He read my book and was like, we should team up. We teamed up last year teaching seminars, and now we run this mindfulness and movement experience for people, which has been absolutely outstanding. And like, not only for me as a like individual, but for people who are going through it. It's like the whole picture of health and wellness all wrapped up into this little experience.
I mean, that is, I mean, this concept of wellness, I don't know why it's taken so long. Because there used to be these, you would have these people that maybe they were into meditation, and I guess maybe yoga was the real one that was kind of encompassing all of this.
Yeah.
But it still just seemed like such a niche thing that a lot of people stayed away from it. But as far as even if you took in weights, like you had powerlifters, right? You had bodybuilders, these different things. And when I first got out of the Air Force, I was working at a Gold's Gym in Sacramento, California. And when I say,
oh yeah, I think I've been there.
Have you
My
really?
brothers live in Sacramento. Oh yeah.
Okay, so I was at McClellan Air Force Base, which shows my age. It's no longer around. And I was just around these absolute monsters, right? These like meatheads. They were. Unfortunately, he was a very nice guy. And he's unfortunately passed. A bodybuilder named Mike Matarazza was one of the owners, and these people were taking copious amounts of steroids. Right? They were. I don't want to put a label on anyone. I'm going to say they were not the most mentally sound, healthy people, but they portrayed this thing. They were on the cover of Men's Fitness, Men's Health. So there was this facade of what fitness and wellness is, and it's it's really nice to see that they're going, hey, there's more than just to be how much can you overhead squat or how much can you do, because getting this brain thing, what's going on between your ears, kind of figured out it's all for nothing. And
yeah. Well, there you hit on a really good point. I mean, so I actually was one of those people who would go to the gym and really care about what I looked like for a period of time. And I got involved in the fitness competitions, not the ones where you did a bunch of gymnastics, but more the ones where you just stood there like a statue and would diet, myself to nothing.
Right.
And it was not fun. Yet I really, part of my life, I really cared about that image, right? And that isn't what health is. And now that it's taken years of developing my own personal development, but then also like looking outside of that fitness world and seeing, looking beyond it and seeing like, what is actually health? Okay, health is actually being aware in the present moment of how you are in the world and how you move. And so like all the research points to that. Happiness, if you're present in the moment, then you will be happier no matter what you're doing, right? Like you could be cleaning toilets or shit, or you could do but if you're present. And so when you are present though, that means you are more aware of how you're moving.
Yeah.
Or you're not moving. You're aware of your posture. You're aware of the way you treat people. You're aware of the way you judge people. And so that's what the mindfulness work has helped me understand, is that mask I was wearing. And even as a PT business owner and what I was doing with CrossFit, while I loved it, it was so very, very ego driven too, in a lot of ways. Even the individuals who, helped create the course I was teaching, like even mentioned, like, you're diving into people's ego here. You're helping them improve their their snatch, their clean and jerk. And I just felt like, in a way, that for a while that was fun and great because he traveled all over, but then there's just still something missing. Like, I don't want to feed into people's egos. Like, yeah, I do care about your overhead position in your shoulders. I could give a shit how much you lift.
Yeah.
I just care that you move and move well. And, so that was kind of that just feeling of unrest. Like the more I became aware of that, and it like was in a lot of parts of my life, like the way I treated patients, the way I taught the CrossFit courses, the way I was, with my friends, even some of the people I chose to work with, it just felt like something was missing. Yeah. And it was that education on how to be aware. So first I had to dive into it myself. For me to actually know what was missing, I first had to apply it to my own life. And I had to fall on my face numerous times to figure it out. But that mindfulness, not necessarily meditation, but the practice of mindfulness and being aware and slowing down, paying attention, not doing as much, right? Stop trying to do as much and be more present with myself and those I love, helped me be more aware of what was missing. And so what was missing was building emotional intelligence with these movers I was working with, building emotional intelligence and helping people slow down in their movement, helping people slow down with the decisions they made, helping people slow down with how they treat themselves and treat others. Like, pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth, pay attention to how you're talking to your loved one in front of you. Typically how you treat them is a great mirror of how you treat yourself, and so all of these things, like, I just over the last 4 years have I added it to my own life, but then found the right people who were also interested in the same thing. It's like that kind of me shifting as a person helped attract the right people too, who are into the same things and into that same process of that journey of like becoming more aware and waking up. Actually, like that's what I call it, is waking up.
Yeah.
And Pima Chadron is a great author. She talks about waking up all the time. Mm-hmm. And like so by me waking up, I said goodbye to some of these partnerships I had or people I worked with in a loving way. It's like, this just doesn't serve me anymore. And it doesn't serve the people I want to work with. And so, that's part of life though, is kind of an ebb and flow of letting go. But the more aware and more present you are with what's going on in your body and mind, the better you can be in the world.
Yeah.
Be for others. They're for others.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I want to say about that. One, the fitness industry, and I do, you know better than I do, but as great as the CrossFit movement has been, it's also something. It's a business, right? And they know certain things sell. So there are those things, those aspects of even bodybuilding and those traditional things that bleed over. There's a reason guys their shirts are off and like every time they get hot. Can you imagine every time you got hot, you just had to like strip down but it sells. And there's always going to be that ego. And
of course.
And some of it is people have worked very hard to look the way they look. So, and I completely get that. But I do think there's a slippery slope when we give the power to others to determine on how we feel about ourselves. And
very much so.
So,
and I definitely, oh my gosh, like, that was years of my life. Like, and it's a roller coaster from being an athlete to the Marines to running a business. I let other people dictate how I felt about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing is, well, two things. You talk about who you surround yourself with. And that is one of my biggest things. Like, I don't care how strong willed you think you are. If you surround yourself with people that are counterintuitive to what you're trying to stand for, it will compromise you. I've seen it every time, like with myself.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think it's through the mindfulness work that, and just some of the other personal development stuff I've done to kind of in a way, like unleash who I am, right? Like, we're all really good people. It's just finding that, like realizing that. Yeah. And sometimes it takes some training. So for me, I felt at times like I had to work with these people because they emulated what I thought was the right thing to be doing in the fitness space or PT world, or because it was cool, or because that person convinced me, or, a number of reasons. And the thing I'll tell anyone out there listening is that, and this is what I share with myself, is that with this work that I've done for myself, and now that we put out in the world with John, is that there's a level of self-compassion I have. Like, I did choose to work with that person. I did choose to do that because I'm human and I learned. And now I know I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And now I know that, the people that maybe I surrounded myself with weren't the healthiest for me. And that's okay. That's power.
Yeah.
Because I figured that out now versus like, just kind of like, oh, well, it's cool. It's good for me. I should be doing this. I should be around this person. No, if that person treats me like shit, no.
Yeah, right.
Or treats other people like shit, no, I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, completely. And if anything, my experience from trying to change and then seeing, I see myself and others a lot more. So along with that just comes an empathy. Like, you can look at that person and feel bad for him.
Yeah.
And that was something. That's usually the first sign I'm in a bad place, is when I have zero empathy for people.
Right.
That's where I know, like, maybe I need to slow down and do something to make some changes, because I'm not doing well.
Yeah, it is. You hit on something, like that empathy piece is huge. I had a colleague, this was a while back, but, seemingly on a similar mission, right? You think you know someone. And then there was one day, I remember sitting down and this person telling us, I want to be famous. You're not making me famous. And
sorry.
I remember being like, because there was a friend, I cried. But through this mindfulness work, I started to develop this. I felt bad. Like, I was like, this individual really needs to be validated.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. And so the best thing I could do is love and let go.
Yeah.
Like, bud, good luck to you. I wish you the best. That is not that's not the path I'm going down. It is important for me to help others. And however that gets out there, as long as I'm doing it for the right reasons, but it's not just for my own sake, my own fame, right? It's to help others. But it was nice to get to a point where other people, I was able to be empathetic towards them. And the fact that they really and you look at all around on social media, a lot of people are looking for validation, and that's not going to bring you happiness.
It's something I struggle with. And I think even in one of our messages going back and forth leading up to this, I'd said something like, I always feel strange hosting something called Consequence of Habit and then posting stuff on whatever social media across the board. Because I've said it on here before.
I know. Yeah.
I'm low lying.
You did say that.
I'm low lying fruit for things like social media. And we're going to get into addiction in a bit, but there is something about, it's dopamine. And when I get it, it's like, I'm like, me likey. I want more. So it's something I always have to, it's a constant struggle. And I accept that. Like I accept that how I am. That's just the way. And it's funny. We're hosting a digital fast in February, and we're going to be working with students. I'm trying to get some military people in where we're saying like 30 days. Not saying you can't use your phones at all, because it's just the digital age. We have to, you're gonna have to be on for emails and things like that. But to really take a look at it and go, hey, is this thing, you're talking about being mindful. One of the biggest challenges we have now is there's just this constant ability to distract and escape. Like you don't have to sit in much anymore.
No, you're right. And social media I was sharing this with the students earlier, because if you look from the outside in, maybe even at what you do, what I do, you see like, oh man, they have it all together. I'm running a Consequence of Habit, podcast and, run a business. And I was sharing with these students, like the way you put yourself out there is literally connect with other people, find a way to connect. Yes, LinkedIn has been the best way to connect, because I actually have conversations like this. It's not just only a digital, it's not just like liking a picture. It's literally the people I'm connecting with are other professionals, and we have a conversation typically. And, but having boundaries, developing boundaries, because we do live in a digital age. So it's really important to develop boundaries around how you use digital. And then every time you go on to share something, why are you sharing it? What is the reason? And as long as that you have a good reason for your own self as to why, you're making a difference in people's lives. So every time you go on and share, you're making a difference in people's lives potentially, right? And so as long as you can remember that, then it helps with that process. And then you turn it off. Then you go away from it, right? And maybe there's a period of time that you're on supporting other people, but that's it, right? As long as you have the boundaries around it, which is really important in life in general, with people too. There are people in your life, family, you can't change family. You gotta have boundaries with family though, sometimes. Or friends, or certain conversations can't necessarily happen all the time. Like you got to have specific space for it, right? So developing, that's the habit creation. I think developing these micro habits of creating boundaries around the things that might cause you to unravel or be extra stimulating, like social media is meant to be. You got to create a habit around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also we're getting back to acceptance. Some people just accepting the fact that it's too much of a struggle for me. So I'm just going to do away with it. Like it's just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit my lifestyle. And that's where I think that's the part I kind of I flip back and forth on, because to be a business owner and not do these things is, but all right, I'm going on to left field. I want to get back to your story.
It's good.
When I was kind of doing research leading up to this interview, I came across your TED Talk, very powerful. And I think it's something I wanted to dive into because I think it plays into all of this. First of all, let's at some point you have to come to terms and you have to face the fact that you're dealing with an issue. And I'm going to let you tell that story, but it was the timing of it that really stood out to me as courageous, truly courageous, because it could not have been easy. And we're going to get into the power of vulnerability and coming to a crossroads and deciding like what is important right here, right now, and then having the courage to do something about it. So I'm going to let you take it from there.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so yes, I I'll give you a little background on that TED Talk. So I gave birth to my first son, this was 4 years ago. And that TED Talk was 8 weeks later.
I know you said it during, I was like,
And,
wait,
yeah,
what?
And I can't believe, I actually am really proud of myself for doing it. Now, I'm not going to do that again. I'm not having more children, actually. But I was like in the fog of baby. So the fact that I like could stand up there and talk was great. But yeah, so I had bulimia. I am not a bulimic. I had bulimia, and that's something I think everyone who out there who has an addiction or is in sobriety from an addiction, right? You aren't defined by that addiction. It was a part of you. It is a part of you, but it doesn't define you. And so yes, I had bulimia, and it was eating bulimia as well as exercise bulimia. And so I developed. So I had disordered eating disorder. I think a lot of people have disordered eating actually, because food is the easiest drug, right? Like we just had Halloween. There's sugar everywhere. Sugar is addicting. An eating disorder goes beyond just the addiction of sugar. And like any addiction, it's telling of how you handle life. What's going on in life, how you're handling it. And food just happened to be my drug of choice. Restricting, binging, and purging, which this might be triggering for some people hearing this. So just know that their National Eating Disorder Association is a great resource for anyone out there who's struggling with an eating disorder. But so binging, purging, restricting, and then exercise, bulimia, I over-exercise, etc. So, college was more of the start of a disordered eating pattern I had, where I would restrict, not restrict, diet, not diet, kind of yo-yo diet. And it very much affected my mood. And then fast forward to the Marine Corps, where, life was there was a bit more pressure on me. I signed up for it. I was excited to be a Marine. The pressure, and then starting to dabble in the fitness industry, doing the fitness competitions, started to really, I learned what restricting, like extreme restriction, looked like. And it did feed this like dopamine response of like, well, I get so many more compliments. I'm like the fitness queen, I was kind of the fitness queen in college, and then now in the Marine Corps, especially. And there's not many women Marines, and if you're a fitness focused female Marine, you can do no wrong.
Right.
And so, that fed into my addiction too. But it was a secret addiction. Like you don't get pulled over for bulimia. Yeah. You don't get, in trouble for overdoing food or underdoing it. People just see what you look like. And I always got comments about what I looked like. Usually not from my Marines. My Marines, I were like a family. It was more of my superiors and then people outside of my unit. So I was dealing with, I didn't want to call it an eating disorder. I knew I was struggling with food issues. I just didn't want to acknowledge it because one, how I was trained was troop welfare, take care of your Marines. And I was fucking good at that. I was really good at taking care of everyone else. And then two, mission accomplishment. Okay, I'm going to war. I need to train my Marines to be, they already know how to use their weapons, but like get them on some demo ranges, get them the training they need for what we're going to be doing in Iraq, which was mine clearing, building vehicle checkpoints, shit like that. So my job was to get them the training they need and then also take care of them. We had a couple women who were dealing with sexual assault issues. I had a few women in my platoon. We had some men dealing with marital issues, you name it. It's just all kinds of things go on. And so my life wasn't my own. There was no time to take care of myself, and nor was anybody looking after me. To be honest, none of my superiors were asking me how I was doing, which, okay, they're human beings. Most likely they weren't taking good care of themselves either, but at the time, nobody was asking me how I was doing. The only person that was asking me that was my dad. And so I was just like, I'm doing my job. I just feel like I'm struggling, but I'm doing my job. And I looked it on paper and I could perform well. So just whatever food stuff is going on, it'll probably go away when I deploy, which, anyone with an addiction out there, and I'm sure UJT, like, yeah, not happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
So, but I still deployed. I actually, I wrote a book about this. I did work with our battalion's I did live with my battalion medical doctor who knew what was going on. And I actually convinced her I was okay. Like, she knew what was going on, and I had to convince her, like, I'm going to be fine. I ended up getting help under the rug, getting some medication that wasn't on my record. I lied, essentially. I said I was okay. When I I kind of convinced myself. I over rationalized, like, yeah, I'm okay. I've got to do my job. Like, I can't worry about this shit. And so, yeah, I deployed and did some amazing things in Iraq with my Marines. We built vehicle checkpoints. We ran landmine clearing missions. We ran one of the first we set up polling sites for one of the first democratic elections that was going on in Iraq, Fallujah at the time, Iraq as a whole. I actually also worked as a female insurgent escort, where, the regimental commander would take me in the middle of the night and we'd pick up a female insurgent and return her to her people. And so I, was face to face actually with the enemy, quote unquote,
Sure,
many times. And yet secretly I was throwing up 6-7 times a day.
Yeah.
And in secret, nobody saw it, And so there came a point, though, as you mentioned, like, my dad had written me a lot of letters. Every time I talked to him, I pretty much cried. It was the only time I did cry. And he was like,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just, were you, because you said no one, other than your dad was kind of asking how you're doing. When you're talking to your dad, are you open about this stuff at this point? Or is that like, was one person you can kind of talk to, or did he just kind of know something was not right?
No, I told him what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to tell him. And I did tell a nurse in Iraq about what was going on. And she was basically like, you can't tell anyone, or you're going to get kicked out. Like, don't say anything.
Golly, man.
So I didn't say anything. I only told my dad, and it was away from my unit on a sat phone, where Marines could use their computers, but I made sure no one was around. But my dad ended up writing a letter to me, many letters, but one of them was saying, like, look, like, the Marines will go on. Like, this war is going to go on, but you won't if you continue doing this. And you're going to not only hurt yourself, but other people.
Yeah.
And I kind of, when I know about brain science now, like, my amygdala was just in overdrive the whole time.
It's hijacked.
And so, I was hijacked, and I wasn't making clear decisions. Like, I was literally, I think it was the one night when I was on a mission, I was responsible for, 100 plus Marines, and no one got injured, but I wasn't focused at all. I mean, I was maybe like 60% there. And I literally had to look at myself, and thanks to my father, who kind of like, also was talking to me like a leader. He's like, you're a leader. You are not doing a good job as a leader right now. You're only at 60. If you're functioning at 60%, like, that's not good enough. And I care about you. Like, I love you. Like, I've already lost my wife. I don't want to lose you. And, I mean, my dad he's been a huge influence in my life. He passed away 5 years ago, but still a huge influence on my life. And I saw what it was like for him to lose his wife. Right. And at that moment, I realized, like, this isn't just me I'm trying to hide this from. Like, this isn't healthy. This is affecting my dad. And, oh, by the way, this convoy I just ran, I could have hurt people.
Yeah.
And so I did go that day. I went straight to my XO, my CO and my commanding officer. And he, of course, gave me this feel like, well, my girlfriend in college had an eating disorder.
I'm very proud of you.
Sounds
That's
like
great.
Yours. And what do you want to do about it? You want to go like on light duty or like, and I was like, I think I like need professional help. Like, I think I need to go home. And everyone tried to convince me to go to like another base and just work at a desk. I was like, no, working at a desk isn't solving my problem. I need I need help, like actual eating disorder help, not drug or alcohol addiction help, eating disorder help. And, like the military knows what to do with alcoholism. Because it's seemingly more common, but eating disorders are actually pretty common too.
Yeah.
They just aren't talked about as much. So I ended up getting medevaced home for this eating disorder, which was one of the most hard experiences of my life. More from a standpoint of I was so embarrassed. I'm next to people who have these physical wounds. One guy who wanted to commit suicide, who was being detained and going home to get some help. And here I am with an eating disorder, and I felt so small.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you. That's what stuck out to me was there's a reason we don't tell people about our addictions, and it's that bitch of shame. Like it sucks. So when the consequences of you coming forward, one is for something that it had to take a tremendous amount of courage, and then for it to be minimized by the superiors. And then when you finally get to the point where you're getting the help that you truly need, there's this punitive response to it. And that only makes that shame, I'm guessing, only makes it that much worse and that much heavier to have to kind of sit through. That was my biggest takeaway was from that TED Talk was like, God, the process of getting to that, I'm going to guess the lowest of lows, and then starting over and rebuilding and working your way up. I think there's tremendous power in that. I think there's no way you knew it at the time, but the power of that story as it's evolving it's awesome. Really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, going back there, it was one of the hardest times in my life. I mean, there's so much shame with it. And, the thing that kept me going was my mom. I mean, my mom passed away when I was 10 from breast cancer, but I remember her telling me, she remember her literally holding my face as a 10-year-old and saying, life must go on for you.
Wow.
No matter what. And because I was like, I can't go on without you.
Yeah.
And now and she literally was like, it has to, Theresa, like, you're going to be fine. And, every time I hit these points where I just didn't want to, I was like, no, I have to. Yeah. I told her I would.
Yeah. And all of these things, man, like trauma and stress. And this was something I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and it's a psychologist. And I was trying to figure out a way to package towards the military, like how we deal with loss, how we deal with stress and trauma, and that acceptance that we all will be victims to it at some point, right? Mm-hmm. Some of us younger age than others. Mm-hmm. And I was comparing it to altitude sickness. And I think one of the problems with the military, this idea of suck it up, it fits it sometimes. Like sometimes you just, if it's in the middle of something, you got to suck it up.
Yeah.
But that does not serve people long term. And this idea of, if you were part of a platoon going up a mountain and someone starts suffering from altitude sickness, well, you would never say to them, suck it up. It's right. Because it's not your toughness that's being questioned. It's not your character that's being questioned. Some people are going to deal with it better just because of the way they're wired, it's the way they're built. Yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that. It's just, you talk to people who have been through trauma, and the way it manifests itself, we all find these different avenues. We pick our own poisons to feel good short term. And it's that long-term thing of doing the things that don't bring that instant gratification, that where you get that true self-confidence, where it's not in the eyes of the person looking at you, deciding how much body fat you have, or, it's
well,
tricky.
I was doing an interview for this documentary recently, and the thing that I brought up was that when, as service members, we join for a reason, to serve, right? And it's a brave thing to do. And no, by no means did I know what I was up against when I joined. I just knew that I wanted to do brave things for my country and make a difference. And at the end of the day, I didn't have tools on how to keep myself healthy to help others. I was really good at, and this is a lot of service members and leaders who do so good at taking care of other people and accomplishing missions and making money for their company and driving that they can't slow down to take care of themselves. They don't know how to. And they aren't at necessarily a young age given the tools.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful mindfulness training is actually becoming part of some of the services curriculum. I think the Army is implementing some of it. I don't know how effective it is, but the other component to developing a mindfulness practice with service members, to be honest, which I think could be super beneficial, is building this idea of empathy, right? Like, yes, there are certain, like I had to go through the convoy, completed the convoy. It wasn't like, hey, I'm out, in the middle of it.
Right.
I finished it, but I knew once I was back and everyone was safe that I needed to go do something and that someone else could step in for me. Even my gunnery sergeant at the time, or staff sergeant, Adam Larson, he's an amazing man I'm still in touch with. He even was like, dude, the Marine Corps is going to go on. You're going to be fine. Like, yeah. I think he was the only one I told specifically what was going on and told the truth to, because I didn't tell everyone I had an eating disorder. When I went home, I said I had a heart condition, which, yes, an eating disorder can create heart conditions. I mean, if you're throwing up 6 or 7 times a day, what does that do to your esophagus? What can that do to you? It can do really bad things. Yeah. But all people see is, oh, you can't eat brownies. You can't go to the chow hall. Like, you look fine. Like, what's wrong with you? And so but the interesting thing was, and I actually can think about this person in a, like we talked about earlier, in a more empathetic way, and feel sorry for them, is the lieutenant that took over for me. Like, he was married. He didn't have any kids, but there was a lieutenant they had to fly out to take over my position. And him and his wife were so ridiculously mean to me because of that. And I was just, not to my face, but in sharing rumors about me.
Sure.
And I found out about this later on, but I felt it really hurt. If I knew a Marine was suffering, a fellow lieutenant, with what I was dealing with, and I had to go take over for them, I would do it in a heartbeat. Like, okay, I got this. Go take care of yourself. But that wasn't the response. And that is a failure of the system in a way, of like, let's train our people to be empathetic, because when you do brave things, fucking hard shit's going to happen in your brain too. Yeah. Things are going to happen. You're going to cope in different ways. So let's figure out how to be a family versus be against each other. And that's, now if I saw that person on the street, hey, all the best. But like at the time, like that was pretty uncalled for.
Yeah. It's the easy way out. It's easy to be mad at somebody and blame things on other people. And then sometimes when people don't get it,
yes,
they don't understand it. I've said on here a bunch of times, when people used to tell me their back hurt, I'd be like, yeah, that must be terrible. And I was like, whatever, just kind of, and then then I've had 2 back surgeries. And so now anytime someone's like, hey, my back's not good, I'm like, sit down, let's relax. Let's figure out what's going on. You're only going to make it worse until I went through that, it's just ignorance a lot of times.
Totally.
Yeah.
But when you do have, when you do develop this sense of empathy in your life and kind of like are aware, like even in the service, there is a mission accomplishment and troop welfare, but there's a connection of working together and taking care of each other and looking out for each other. And when someone isn't doing well or struggling, that's what we do, is we pick each other up.
Yeah.
And that isn't necessarily part of the training as an officer, right? Or as enlisted, and that should be. How do we support each other? Because we're all coming at, from different walks of life. And sometimes we might have to carry the back of someone else.
Yeah. 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 I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, I've seen it just recently on a military base of some leadership really talking about some people like, hey, they're just doing this to get out, or without, I mean, I'm going to guess they don't truly know everything that's going on in somebody's life.
Of course.
It's
you never do.
Yeah. Like I said, it's an easy thing to do. It's very easy to kind of put people down, and we're famous for eating our own, like show some weakness, and it's like blood in the water, and the sharks will show up for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so hard about these communities of getting people to open up. You know, if you don't realize, like, hey, you know, I see it in law enforcement, well, just first responders in general. Like, if your management doesn't, I mean, really, it should be because they care about you and your wellness and how they feel about you. But on that civilian side, you want your people making sound decisions, because we've seen what happens when we don't. Right. Really, I mean, if you just put a monetary value on it, you'll see that it behooves you to have people that are in a good mental place before they show up to work, because, checks in the mail for bad stuff. So,
yes. No, I mean, the thing is, it's, this work, you know, in my eyes, and there's people that are amazing people out there who've made mistakes, and have faced them. And then there are people who aren't. And I think just having empathy for people, that they're doing the best they can. And unfortunately, some of the best they can is pretty shitty still. But the fact that, you know, if I ever saw some of these individuals who were mean, I would hopefully guide them towards a better way. Like, hey, you know what you could have done a little differently, or maybe this might help you in your life with your own family right now.
Yeah.
We've kind of lost, you know, that's something in the healthcare world, service, this humanity. We are human beings. We have souls, we have hearts. You know, it's not just about the mission. We're living, breathing human beings. And when we can treat each other as such, it doesn't have to be all touchy feely and shit. Like, but there's got to be a time when there's a connection on a human level.
Yeah.
We work with women now in special operations. Women are built, we are a little bit different than men. So, you know, but we can do good shit.
Yeah.
We can do a lot of good shit, actually. And so let's just stop like judging and like actually learn how to connect.
Yeah. Find the similarities like that. And I think that's what we just suffer with across the board. And God forbid you throw in MSNBC or Fox News or put them all in, and they'll be sure to connect us or disconnect us as much as possible. I had Stacey Sims. I don't know if you know Stacey Sims.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I haven't released it yet. Yeah, I haven't released it yet. But I had her on the podcast too. So I'm excited about because I mean that's a lot of her story. Like, hey, we're just different. We have different. You have Roar.
I have her book here. Roar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
She's great.
Yeah, she's fantastic. You know, there was one other thing that I wanted to discuss with you, but I think you already kind of covered it, and it was more this idea of honest conversation, whether it be with yourself or with others. You know, you said even talking to other people, and you said you've even were forthcoming about some of your struggles. And you use this power of manipulation, which I'm going to throw that title on there. It's because what I use when we have things we feel a lot of shame about, we're pretty good at getting people to believe otherwise. Mm-hmm. But this idea, and this comes from a past guest named Dan Ellis, who unfortunately lost both of his parents to suicide. Of this, I want to get this phrase right. Honest conflict is way more powerful than dishonest harmony. That we can continue to go on and just kind of get by. But at some point, these honest conversations kind of have to happen. Would you consider that the most honest conversation, the hardest conversation you had when you kind of came forward with your eating disorder?
Yeah, I would say the honest conversation that I had with myself first, for sure. Like, you know, because everything was, you know, I had to look the part, be the part, act the part, could do no wrong. Like I was more afraid of failing as a Marine with my Marines and looking bad in their eyes than anything else. But I had to honestly look at myself and look at what I was doing I was doing, you know, I was in combat before women were even acknowledged.
Yeah.
Not allowed, but acknowledged about being there. And like, I was doing amazing things with my Marines. Just, I was honestly really struggling. It was in that convoy kind of opened my eyes to the fact that I'm really effed up here. Like, I really need some help. And my dad brought this level of awareness to me gently in a way of like, you matter.
Yeah.
And for the first time, acknowledging, okay, I matter too. Not I matter to my dad. I matter to my Marines.
Yeah.
My health matters. I matter. And I don't know where along the line, I mean, I don't know where along the line I didn't realize I didn't feel I did matter. Because I think there was a point in my life that I probably just lost touch with. All that matters is that people think of me as a good athlete, a good person, a good Marine, strong, all that. And all that other stuff just needs to be pushed down into the basement, and like I'll think about that some other time, which would be never,
Yeah.
Until that moment in my room after that night convoy, I was like, oh man, I think I'm not doing well. I need to like do something about it. I know I'll probably lose my job, but I'm going to hurt someone else. I potentially could hurt someone else.
Do you think
I'm going to hurt myself?
Sorry. Do you think it was the role of it as a leader, and then it compromising you as a leader? What I'm getting at, do you was that decision made easier by that? Would you have been able to make that decision if you had not been in that position where you think it might have compromised you as a leader?
I think being a leader made me more, it was a little bit more prevalent in terms of like pressure. Cause the Marines look to me for a lot of things, not just operational stuff, like, personal development and training. And so there was this level of responsibility of like, okay, I'm admitting something's wrong and this might impact the people that I'm serving.
Yeah.
And I need to just come clean. And I didn't really come clean, to be honest, about what was going on with me because I didn't want to face it yet. I just wanted to face the fact that I needed professional help, and I wasn't going to get it in Fallujah.
No, you weren't.
So,
well, I guarantee that the people that know the Marine that you were and everything that kind of goes along with this package that we present to people, when those people that come across like they've really got it together have the courage to come forward and put these things out there, I think there's so much more power in that. Because then everyone else can go, oh man, I mean, if they've got something, maybe I can come out with X, Y, Z, right?
That's very much what's happened is when I wrote Warrior, my memoir 5 years ago, it's not a bashing of the Marine Corps or anything. It's actually my come to wellness story. It's like look, this is what I dealt with, and this is what I've chosen to take ownership of. And it's been really great. I've actually connected with a lot of my Marines, and even some of the lieutenants that were total asswads since then. And because no one knew, but they realized like they judged, right? They some of them actually realized like I judged you way too much.
Right.
And that was, that was good. That was very healthy, like to have those conversations, and some of them still keep in touch with. And and even for me, the honest conversation is I am very proud of my service. I had an eating disorder, yes, but I am very proud of the way I served and the way I was honest with my leadership, even though the leadership told me they were disappointed and that I was, I like, what's wrong with me? Regardless of that, I know I did the right thing.
Yeah.
And I know that's what I know that asking for help was an act of leadership.
The idea of service, sometimes it takes a while to see it, but I guarantee that service continued by you coming forward. I've had General Greg Martin on the show, suffered bipolar, and that is his continued service. Like sometimes it's just being vulnerable is part of it, and it's,
yes.
There can be another service member or maybe not that can hear your story and have the courage to do the same. So, and really that stoic philosophy of the obstacle is the way. Without those decisions that you made then, who knows? who knows everything you've done since then. It's just,
Yeah.
it's cool, man. Sometimes it's that vulnerability that really sparks this new path of wherever you're going to go. And, well, listen,
Very much so. It can be, wounds can be your wisdom.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
yeah, wounds can be your wisdom. And I tell all veterans, like, look, you know, the transition is challenging for everyone, but your service doesn't have to end. It just is going to look different. So now I bring this sense of vulnerability into the wellness space. Because when people look at me or see what I do and they're like, you could do no wrong. And I'm like, oh yeah, I can.
Right.
And I'm a human being just like you. And I will have this awkward, vulnerable conversation because it's needed. And then that opens up the floodgates for other people to be like, oh, wow, she's human. She's sharing this. Like, I know someone in my life, or actually that's happening with me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something about it.
Yeah.
So there is a huge, in terms of my responsibility now, in a really amazing way. It's like doing this with you, sharing about it that's my responsibility, is to show people what's possible.
Yeah.
If they do face their demons and their wounds, because it can definitely turn into wisdom. It's just not going to happen overnight.
No, then that's the hard part, right? None of these things are fast, but, Theresa, I know you got to get going here. If people want to find out more about you, check out your social, where can people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Theresa Larson. You can find me at Movement RX. We've got Facebook and Instagram, but check out movement-rx.com. We've got some wonderful opportunities. I get to work with John McCaskill on the mindfulness and movement experience, which is on our website, movement-rx.com. So I would definitely challenge you all to check it out. Our next experience launches December 1st, and then every 6 weeks thereafter. But, we run these experiences for 21 days with a tribe, with full support from myself and John and my team.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to hopefully having a Consequence of Habit event that's going to include both you and John McCaskill. So more to come with that. Dr. Larson,
JT.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're a badass. I appreciate you too.
Thanks. All right, that's it. Thanks everybody for checking out the podcast. If you guys like this, please go on to Apple. Go on Apple. I don't even know what that means. If you listen to this podcast on Apple, please leave a rating. It means a lot. I've said it before. I don't even know why it means a lot, but in the world of podcasting, it most certainly does. If you guys want to hear more or see more about what we're doing, please check out consequenceofhabit.org. If you want to hear the newsletter or read the newsletter, whatever you want to, you're going to read it because you can't hear it. So if you guys want access to the newsletter, sign up there and we will start getting you more information. If you guys think there's a guest that should be on here, then please feel free to hit us up at info@consequenceofhabit.org and let us know who it is, what their story is, and we'll see about getting him or her on. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next time.